Shalom, everyone, and we are reading this week Parashat Pekudei, Exodus chapter 38, verse 21 and on, till the end of the book of Exodus, Shmot, which means this parasha is called also, it's a chazak. Why? Because we finished the reading of the whole book this Shabbat, this coming Shabbat, and we're coming basically to the culmination, to manifestation of all what the book of Exodus is about. It's about Exodus. And Exodus means reaching freedom. And how does Parashat Pekudei, if we read the parasha, it's a lot of details about the building of the Mishkan, the tabernacle. All of these readings, all of these details are repetition of the previous parashot. So how is that connected to freedom, liberty? Just to remind you the connection. Okay, we are starting the book of Exodus in Parashat Shemot, and these are the names of the children of Israel coming to Egypt. And we listen, we hear, when we read the parasha, we hear about the dire situation of society in the ancient world some over 3,000 years ago. We are talking, no, it was not just that the Israelites were in a dark place. The whole world was in a dark place. We are talking about a world of tyranny, a world of no human rights, no liberty, no democracy, nothing that we can admire, except from what we admire from the Egyptian culture is the artwork that stayed in the pyramids, in the temples, and all of that stuff that in the archaeological excavations. But if you really hear about the nature of each of those kingdoms that ruled the world of that time, no one want to be part of it, because, as we said again, no human rights. We're talking about very small elites that have the total control over the majority of the people, that had literally status of slaves, serfs, servants. And that was the whole purpose of their living, serving somebody else, and whatever they accumulated, whatever fortune they accumulated, whatever happiness they accumulated, the elites, the government, there was no government at that time, it was the kingdom, had the right to take everything they have. Okay? And as we go through the book of Exodus, we start to realize here is the first time in history that slaves, not just individuals, slaves as a nation, are achieving a state of life of freedom, of liberty. And they have to go through the crush of the oppressor, of the tyrants, which is Pharaoh and his kingdom, and have to break through, get out of their slavery and free and terrible state of darkness, and reach out to the desert. And in the desert, they have to learn what does it mean to be a free individual, freedom to be happy. And that message comes on Mount Sinai. And I spoke about it many, many times. Yes, a lot of people trying to belittle the Torah, the Bible, by saying, you know, in ancient Egypt, there were rules like do not steal, do not kill. Okay, in ancient Mesopotamia and other great cultures of the Middle East of that time. However, that was not that these rules applied only to the serving class, which means to the slaves class, the people who had no ownership over their lives and their property. Okay, the ruling class had all the rights to steal, to kill, to take whatever they wanted. Okay, now, Mount Sinai was and again, and the force behind those rules was I'm the only one who can take from whoever I want, talking about the king, whoever I want, I'm the only one who can steal and kill and whatever. And here comes Mount Sinai and says every human being has been created in the image of God. Every human soul is a spark of God, and every individual has the right for happiness, freedom, liberty, and no one, by any means, has the right to take it away from any human being. So when we are talking about the Exodus as a deliverance, we're talking about the deliverance of the idea of a free society, first time in the history of humanity. So we're talking about an amazing, powerful transformation of the idea, because how long did it take that the world all over started to apply it? Took thousands of years. The Magna Carta, that's in the beginning of the 13th century. Okay, so that's how long? That's 26, how many? It's 2,600 years after Mount Sinai. When we are talking about the birth of really true societies with freedom, we're talking about the end of the 18th century. Although the first constitutional monarchy was the Kingdom of Israel, with King Shaul and King David, and later on King Solomon, and the later kings. That was a constitutional monarchy because the king was the first time that you have a monarchy that is not above the law. It's under the law. Therefore, when we read the Torah says, if you want to have a king, he has to write the book by himself and carry it with him wherever he goes. If you are the king, you have to understand every moment, every day, that you are not above the law. And when King David takes Bathsheba to be his wife in a way that is not so legal, no, it's like it was on the gray side. I don't want to go into the real story. She was divorced and her husband was in war at the time. I don't want to go into it, but the point is, still, Prophet Natan Hanavi, comes to the King David and he gives him the most famous story of the sheep of the poor person. Now, coming to a king and telling him that he's not above the law and the king will admit his sin and repent, this is a message, that message comes out from the book of Shemot. Now, how long did it take humanity to apply, to understand? How long does it take each one of us, every human being, to really understand that we are all basically a manifestation of the image of God? We all have a human soul that is a divine spark of God. Now, that is a very powerful message. How does that message manifest in Parashat Pekudei? Parashat Pekudei basically completes the whole book of Shemot. Because if we read the parasha, so it says, Ele Pekudei Mishkan. I don't know in the English translations, there are many of them, how did they translate Ele Pekudei Mishkan? But if we read Rashi, before that, let's read Onkelos. Onkelos translated the Torah into Aramaic. We're talking about the 1st century CE. Okay, and he says, Ilain minyanei mashkena de saduta, And he says basically these are the countings, which means Pekudei, the word Pekudei in Hebrew has a very interesting few understandings, which means many words in Hebrew have many ways to explain them in English or in other languages. Why? Is it like a poor language that you need one word for many things? No, this word has those meanings because all of them come together in that word, and that's why this word has been chosen and not another word. Because minyan is also a Hebrew word. So why it doesn't say in the original Hebrew, Ele minyanei mishkan? These are the accountings of the Mishkan. Because the word Pekudei, let us try to understand the shoresh of the word Pekudei. First of all, and I'm going to the Onkelos and then also to Rashi. Rashi says, "Beparasha zo nimnu kol mishkalei nidvat hamishkan." In this parasha, we go through details through all what has been donated to the building of the Mishkan, the portable temple the Israelites had built in the desert. Okay? And now, if this is just the explanation, why do we need to make a summary and accounting of all the detailed weights of the silver, the gold, and the copper, and everything else that was donated to the building of the Mishkan? Why is that important? So we have to understand first, in order to understand the secret of this parasha, and what does it mean for us today, in our generation. It says it's very simple. Ele Pekudei Mishkan, Moses is giving an accounting. He's giving an account, a report, what has been done with everything that has been donated. You know, if today in the democratic world, what is called the free world, you want to build a company, a public company, you need to be accountable, which means by the end of the fiscal year, you have to have a report what has been done with the money that the public invested in the company. You have to present it to the shareholders, correct? Same thing if it is a non-profit organization. A not-for-profit organization must also legally to have by the end of the year a report that has public access to it. Okay, so everybody knows what happened to the money people donated, not just the donors. Everybody has to know what has been donated, and a non-profit organization that does not have the duty to report, which means this is a not-for-profit organization that somehow is rooted in the dark ages when you couldn't, what does it mean to ask for a report? In Israel, they call it a Ottomanic non-for-profit organization, which means it's still under the laws of the Ottoman Empire. If you know, the Ottoman Empire was established in the Dark Ages, and some of the laws still apply to this organization because you can't just change the law, because these organizations are usually religious organizations that were established under the Ottoman law, and how dare you ask them for a report, right? They're still religious organizations. There's still the laws they are being run. Still the laws of, as I said, the Dark Ages. But however, if we go to the Torah, here we have a very clear message. Let us read that in the Zohar. And the Zohar, again, like I said, wants to give us the background. Parashat Pekudei, you cannot just explain it just by what it says in the parasha. It is the final parasha completing, manifesting the whole book of Shemot. Why is it so important to count all the donations given to the tabernacle? And the Zohar, we will start with the Zohar, Parashat Pekudei, verse 12 in Perush HaSulam, the Sulam commentary of Rabbi Ashlag. אלה פקודי המשכן, משכן העדות אשר פוקד על פי משה, רבי שמעון פתח. בראשית ברא אלוהים את השמיים ואת הארץ. We spoke about it before, but why do we have to speak about it again? When we go to the Zohar, and the Zohar tells us very clearly, there is a direct correlation between the structure of the tabernacle and the structure of the whole universe. The creation, the story of the creation and the story of the building of the tabernacle, the Mishkan, they are parallel to each other. Why is that important for us to know? We spoke about it that Sir Isaac Newton wrote a lot about it. He also proved through his research of these parashot and the Zohar that all the laws of physics, the creation of the world, can be found in the parashot that explain the building of the tabernacle. As I said before, those manuscripts of huge manuscripts of Isaac Newton, they are not in England, they are in Jerusalem in the National Library. Okay, but they explain, and they have a lot of words in Hebrew in them, like Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Akiva, and so on and so forth. Seems to be that Isaac Newton was an expert in the Torah and in the Zohar, and he saw that exactly what the Zohar was saying. And he proved it mathematically, that all of these rules apply to all of physics. Now, so therefore, we read the translation. So Rabbi Shimon said, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, which means the creation of the world and the structure of the tabernacle, they parallel to each other. And the Zohar says, we already explained that verse many times in many ways. However, when the Creator created the universe, he created the physical universe as a reflection of the spiritual universe. As above, so below. Why? Why does this world have to be a reflection of the spiritual world? Okay? And he says, because this is for the purpose that the upper world and the lower world will be connected and attached to each other. So, verse 13, when God wanted to create the world, he looked in the Torah and he created the world, which means the Torah contains all the instructions for the creation of the world. So there's a famous question that sages are asking in the Midrash: why do we need to study Torah? Do we have to create the world? It's already been created. However, we need to study the Torah and to study how the world is structured and the laws running the world, so we can adjust ourselves to the laws of the universe. As everybody knows, if you do not know how to behave by the laws of reality, of physics and biology and so on, if you eat the wrong food, if you behave not according to what you need to behave, which means being angry for a long time, that hurts your heart first, okay? If you eat too much fat, too much sugar, too much white flour, whatever, it hurts your health. You have to know the laws if you want to get the best out of your day, of your life. Okay? And everybody knows that. So the whole world is established on that wisdom. And with that wisdom, the tabernacle, the Mishkan, was built. Okay? So how is that connected to our story? And it continues אלה פקודי המשכן, these are the accountings of the משכן, אשר פוקד, now the same שורש appears again. פוקד means to command, על פי משה, by Moses' instructions, which means the word pei kuf dalid, this is the shoresh of Pekudei, which means accountings. Pukad means to command, to instruct. Okay? Pakid is a clerk. What does it mean, a clerk? When we are talking about a government worker that the public gave him the authority to take care of a function of the society, government, nation, whatever, that's called pakid. Somebody who is in command. Okay, we have so many words. Also, mefaked is a commander. We have a lot of meanings to the same word, the word pekudei. And all of these meanings come together, if you already notice what I'm saying, into very clear issue. And let us read it in the Zohar. Okay, we are in verse 18 in the Zohar of Parashat Pekudei. כד התעבד כל אבידתם. יצטרך משה למימני קולה. בגין דלה ימרון ישראל וישתער כספה ודאבה, ויסתליק לנטלה לי. ודאי יצטרך למימני חושבנה כמה יוד ישראל, בגין דכתיב והייתם נקיים מאדוני ומישראל. Translation. The work of the Mishkan, of the tabernacle, as it has been, and it has been completed, Moses, after the completion, had to count everything and to show the numbers to every one of the nation of Israel. So no one will say that some silver and gold has been left over and Moses took it for himself. And therefore, he had to do the accounting for in front of the whole nation, which means he had to basically give a report like it's being done in every democratic government, company, non-profit organization. This is the law starting from here. Why? Because it says, and God said, you have to be accountable in public to the details. That's why this parasha is so full of details. Why? So you will be clean, and the word is like this, you will be clean in front of God and in front of Israel. What an amazingly powerful expression. Why does Moses need to be clean? God said about him, I trust him. He's my messenger. Like, how dare you, suspect about him? How do you dare you doubt him? No. Moses, although he is the guy, he is the messenger. Twice he had been for 40 days and 40 nights on Mount Sinai, didn't eat, didn't drink. Twice he came from there alive with 2 tablets. Okay, no one ever experienced something of that magnitude. Nobody led a whole nation into freedom. And you doubt him? And what the Torah is saying? Yes, this is what this world is about. It's not about that we doubt Moses. It's about transparency as a basic rule, basic condition for a functional society. If you don't have transparency, how would you want people to feel ownership? What does it mean ownership? You want to have liberty. In order to have a true liberty, you need to feel that nobody is stealing away from you. And let's say I'm not sitting in the government. I'm not sitting in the board of directors of the company that I'm working at, and so on and so forth. You know what I'm saying? If I don't, as long as I don't know I am a human being, and I start to suspect, I start to invent all kinds of conspiracy theories. So why? Because as I don't know what's going on, my brain, what can I do? Has a nature of its own. So if you want to be clean in the eyes of people, you have to be transparent. And if you don't, you have a problem, because people will never feel the ownership. They will never feel true liberty. Why, if you want people to come to work and to give everything they've got, they must feel that it's theirs. Like here in Parashat Pekudei, nobody is being said, it's like, you would think religion. God will say, a good believer should trust my servant Moses. Don't even doubt. And if you doubt, you go to hell. How many times you hear words like this in many, many religious schools all along history? Why? That school, it means they want to rob their followers from liberty, which means it goes against the whole story, what the Torah is about. It has to be transparent. Why? You want to have a true liberty, you need transparency and you need accountability. Okay, without transparency, without accountability, there's no functional society, any kind of society. Could be your synagogue, could be your neighborhood, could be your company, could be your nation, worldwide. If we can picture a functioning humanity that is really functional, first and for all, it has to be transparency and accountability. Number one, okay? Without it, there's no liberty. How could people think that they can celebrate liberty when they doubt their government? When they get any kind of service from any official and they doubt his motives, and they don't think that he is really serving, he's really a public servant. They think he's a dictator. They think he's using his power, and we know power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. People we know through history, the more power they have, the more crazy they become. And they are capable of doing horrible things the more power they have. Because the more power you have, that power starts to control you. You have no control anymore over yourself. Okay, so what if I'm not a dictator? What if I'm not running a government office? What if I'm not having a power vested into me by any kind of big organization? So how would that relate to me? Where is my tikkun over here? And the answer is very simple. When we study Kabbalah, when we study spirituality, the Torah is giving us here a message. Again, for a person to become a spiritual person, to go and to walk on a spiritual journey, the spiritual road, there's no way you can uplift yourself to a higher place. Simple example. Somebody has a dream. He wants to get the gold medal in the Olympics, which means in order to get a gold medal in the Olympics, you cannot just go to the Olympics and compete and win. Nobody can do it, because you need to excel and reach a capacity that very few human beings have. How do you reach that place? Everybody knows that in order for that, it's not enough to be motivated. No one can achieve the gold medal in the Olympics just by counting on his own discipline and motivation. In order to get to such a high rank, you must have at least one trainer, if not a whole team of them, that train you, manage you, and you are basically totally transferred to them, which means they see exactly when do you go to sleep, what's your food intake, when do you get up, how many times a day do you rehearse and train, what is your commitment that has to be daily, hourly, by minute. Everything is regimented. Whoever reaches that place of a gold medal must be that he had a whole great team that trained him and held him accountable. But if the sportsman, the competitor, is hiding the truth from his trainer, you eat stuff that you're not supposed to eat when everybody is gone. Okay, and you're just alone in bed. So you open a box under bed and you start to get out all kinds of stuff that you drink and you eat. They will know immediately that something changed in your weight. You have to be held accountable and transparent. This is the issue. The same thing in the spiritual journey. No one, if we go to our teacher, Rabbi Ashlag, and he sums up a whole thousands of years of methods and wisdom of the sages, how would the person achieve the best outcome? And he says, very simple, we know that a human being has always to fight his biggest enemy, which is his dark side. And the dark side always have the tendency to fall into all those traits. That is laziness, that is lust for all kinds of foods. We know ourselves. Every human being has that story this way or another. No one, teaches Rabbi Ashlag, no one has the power to lift himself up above his status without the help of people around him. Therefore, every Kabbalist along the generations must or had to have a support group, a training group, a coaching group in which people supported each other, opened themselves to each other, in a way criticize each other, and basically they held together before reaching liberty, reaching accountability and transparency to people that you know that they care for you, that they'll invest in you, and they'll support you in your journey. But the liberty that Rabbi Ashlag is teaching us, that he takes it from, all over. You can see it in the Talmud, you can see it in the Zohar. It's another aspect of liberty, and we spoke about it, especially in the last, since Parashat Yitro. The liberty that we are given by the Torah, Mount Sinai revelation, is not just the liberty to be happy. It's not just the liberty to develop our own innovation in any kind of area in our lives, that no one will come and destroy it without any reason, without any justification, which means to live in a society that is really moral, just, and is being accountable for very high values. There's much higher than that, because the true liberty, Rabbi Ashlag is teaching us, the true liberty is when we reach that place that we are totally committed to fight our own inner lies, our own corruption, our own bad inclination, evil inclination, our own selfishness, what the way he calls it, the desire to receive for the self alone. No one can deliver himself. You need to be accountable to a society, a company, a few friends at least that hold you accountable and you're transparent to them. You cannot just transform from a normal person that is a subject, a victim, to his own fears, lust, selfishness, all of those stuff that really poisons our souls and our bodies. You cannot redeem yourself from that Pharaoh, your inner Pharaoh, unless you have this state, as we said, accountability and transparency. The liberty that you achieve when you work on your own traits, your own values, your own nature, only under hard work, as I said again. So somebody got the golden medal for lifting weights, okay? So what? Does that necessarily will make you happy for the rest of your life? No, no, it can even destroy you. How many people with fame have a very, very terrible, dangerous inner destruction, okay? Because of the ego, because of the power, because of the fame, because of people admiration. And then you start using that power and money and so on, and to basically destroy your life. We are talking about really getting the golden medal, which is connecting freely to God. How do you do that? So the sages teach us. In order to attach yourself to God, you have to be on his frequency. How do we get to this frequency? When we commit and work very hard with the best trainers, with the best coaches, our friends, our teachers, our society, our neighbors, when all of us hold each other accountable and we coach each other to move up and up the ladder till we let go of our desire to receive for the self alone and we transform it into the desire to receive for the sake of sharing. When we transform all our desires to this level, we are now in a wavelength, in a frequency that is totally in affinity with the power of the Creator. We are the creators of our lives. We are in total control. Nothing controls us, not money, not food, no sex, not what people say about me, not my career, whatever. Nothing can control my sense of happiness and connection to God. I created it. I worked on it with my friends, with my teachers, but I had to do it by myself. And I am a giving creature. I turn myself into a human being that giving, sharing, and loving is so innate that I cannot think about living my life in a different way. That takes a lifetime, usually many lifetimes. No one can do it by himself. And whoever thinks he can do it by himself, he's a liar. And you know who's the victim of that lie? You. Me. That's the first victim. And all the rest is nothing. So we understand that the message of Parashat Pekudei is from the bottom level, which is every human being, no matter what they are doing for their living or their status in society. We have to engage ourselves into a system that will liberate ourselves, as the sages are saying, from death, literally from death, because when we are subjugated to power hungry, to money, to food, to anything, to all of that stuff that we just listed all the time, all of this Pharaoh, that kills us. This is what kills us because we disconnect from the light of the Creator. We have to choose. Who's your God? The dark side, selfishness, lust, the immediate fulfillment of all of those selfish desires, or I'm really serving my purpose as a human being, which is, what is my purpose? I was created to be a vessel for the light of the Creator. How can I do it? I have to redeem myself. How do I redeem myself? I have to transform my selfishness, all my values, all my thinking, all my daily behavior into a behavior which goes by those great values. That will never happen to any individual without accountability and transparency. And you need for that a healthy spiritual society to be part of it. Now, because society, Rabbi Ashlock is teaching us, is the result of the sum of the individuals, if we want to talk about the redemption of a nation, of humanity, it has to go again with the same ideas: transparency, accountability, and that would lead us into liberty. And again, liberty is not just I'm free and nobody will just treat me with injustice. Liberty is the liberty from the angel of death. That's what the sages are saying. Liberty from the angel of death. We all destined together. And therefore humanity is evolving towards that place. And if we look today about what's going on around in world politics, everybody knows that the system that has been achieved through a lot of bloodshed during World War II and before World War I, that the world is much more transparent, there's much more accountability, and that system does not apply anymore. How do you know that? You look around and you see there's so many people that are members of so many nations, and they do not feel ownership over their own society because they don't think that the people that they voted for and put them, leafkid, gave them and trusted in them. The word is leafkid. Again, another verb that comes out from Pekudei. Leafkid, to entrust. The people that I entrusted them with, the government, I can't trust them because they are not transparent and because they are not accountable. They don't really care about what do I say. But now, since the world is being developed so much, we know that the system of democracy all over the what is called the free world, is not functioning anymore. People don't trust anymore. You go and you ask polls all over. How much do you trust your government system? How much do you trust your parliament? How much do you trust the court system? How much do you trust the police system? We know that this is a sizzling issue all over the free world, not just in places that are still in a stage that they've not evolved yet into at least declaring themselves democracy. Okay, and now since the tools for transparency and accountability are there, it's called social media, it's called the internet, it's called all of those networks in which everything can be transparent. The Zohar says, how did people see all the accountings of Moses? And he said, Holy Spirit. We don't need the Holy Spirit. You just need a phone and you get all the accountings and you can ask questions and you can doubt and you can wait for the answers and everybody can see the answers that you got, and everybody can see that if you ask a question, you were cut off and somebody took you off his Facebook, if it's a minister in a government or a PM member or somebody who's in office, we are in an era that people have to rise to the plate and demand transparency and accountability, because that would lead to liberty. But the liberty we're looking for is not the liberty to do whatever I feel like, whenever I feel like, but I don't hurt anyone. The boundaries are not very clear in that place. It has to be also with the dream to reach liberty from the angel of death. And the only way to reach the liberty from the angel of death is when we achieve liberty to connect to the light of the Creator, to become giving people, to become people with values that are above our immediate needs. And these are basically the values of the Bible. And humanity is moving very fast toward this place because we see that the world we knew since the end of World War II is changing so fast in front of us. And all of this, even these things that look so bad, it's just, as the Zohar says, to get us up and change. Rabbi Ashlag is explaining it very simple. The way human society is structured is people get together and they create a society. And people are members of that society. How do we know? Because a society is made of the labor of all its individuals. If everybody goes on a strike, no matter what you do to them, there's no society. Everything will collapse. So if people cooperate with what they call their government, it means they agree that that's the best they can do. However, those societies, says Rabbi Ashlag, a long history, have the tendency to evolve. And little by little, people start to see that, just a second, the way I'm living, I'm a little bit of a victim. It's not fair. And we know through scientific research, people are very sensitive to fairness. And when they start to realize that the system is not fair, they start to feel pain and anguish. And after a while, the pain and anguish accumulates and accumulates and accumulates. And when the pain and the anguish is accumulated to a critical mass, people revolutionize. They turn it over and change the rules of their society because they are not willing to serve a society that is too much in injustice. So along the thousands of years of human history, society has evolved and created all kinds of ideologies. And think about all of these ideologies, even the disastrous ideologies, especially of the 20th century, they all promised utopia. They promised a perfect society that everybody will be happy as God. And that's why people were willing to give their lives for communism, for socialism, for humanism, for Nazism, fascism, because there was a promise. And people realized that religion doesn't do it. All of these ideologies didn't do it. And now we are in a stage that, exactly as Rabbi, we can see that stage that Rabbi Ashlag is saying, more and more people feel that the system does not support them. They feel that feel of injustice, that feel that it's not honest, that feel that, you know what, we have to change it and we'll do anything possible to do it. And we're getting closer to it. And that's why if you see under those glasses, those perspectives, you see what's going around in world politics. It's not what it used to be. Everything is so open. Everything is so transparent like never before, but not enough. But it will be. And our job is simply to do the inner job of our own transparency, our own accountability. The more we do it, we'll be more liberated. and we'll have more power to influence our society to be more just, more organized, and closer to the society the Torah is talking about. Thank you so much, and have a great week.